Hello, hello, and welcome on Odds on Premier League. It's match day 16. Time flies. Tom, I have the feeling we have done a show together 3 days ago only. How are you? Good to see you.
The sad thing for me is that we don't do a show together every day. That's what we should be doing.
All right. Well, what the match day 15? We are having Arsenal and another win under Arteta's time in the 97th minute. Aston Villa beating City in the pitch and in the table. Ten Hag smiling, plenty of things on match day 15 that will finish tonight. But with Tom, we are already thinking ahead on match day 16. Before we get going with the show, do not forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. Now, let's go. All right, Tom, first one is Crystal Palace Liverpool, 5th defeat in the last 7 for Palace last night. The image of Bournemouth scoring the second with Selhurst Park almost empty, I think says it all. Liverpool with a comfortable win, although the first half was not that smooth against Sheffield United. They were already without Alisson, Diogo Jota, Andy Robertson, all injured. Yesterday, we got to know that Matip will miss the rest of the season with an ACL injury. Alexis McAllister had to leave the pitch with a knee injury as well. But Liverpool had won 10 games in a row against Crystal Palace until last season when they drew both games. The fixture at Selhurst Park in February was a goalless draw. Do you think we could have a game going into the same direction this Saturday?
No, I think Crystal Palace are in real trouble. I think Palace are in real trouble. You mentioned some of the issues they've got right now. The fact there's an indifference about Selhurst Park. People left against Bournemouth because it was so awful. I went to see him at West Ham at the weekend, and if West Ham weren't such wimps, they'd have won that game 5 or 6-0. But West Ham was so unbelievably cautious against a confidence-free Crystal Palace, who have lost Decore in central midfield, who for me is their most important player. They've lost Eze, who for me is their best player. And in Elise, they have someone who can do some magic, but he needs those other guys around him to make him excel. Otherwise, you're asking this maverick individual to do too much. And when you get away from that group, what's left? Odsonne Edouard, Will Hughes, Jean-Philippe Mateta, Joel Ward. I mean, this is not a strong Premier League squad. And so they could be in some serious trouble. Look, I think this is the good year to be rubbish, but Crystal Palace might fall below their customary 12th this year. And I'm not sure reinforcements are on the horizon as well. You look at the recent results too, struggling to score, struggling to create, struggling to keep clean sheets. It's all bad news. It is all bad news right now for Crystal Palace. They kept a clean sheet in the victory at Burnley in November, but in the last 4 games, they've conceded at least once in every single one of them. And the Bournemouth game might well be a nadir of the season, or it might well be the start of everyone noticing just how bad Palace are. In terms of Liverpool, you know, Matip is a huge loss. I think it's very unlikely Alexis McAllister will play in this game. You mentioned some of the others as well, like Robertson, but they're still too strong. They're still scoring plenty of goals. The Sheffield United game was actually a bit more of a test than we thought it was going to be. We went for -3. We came under that, but it was still a Liverpool win. We still give you a second bet as Liverpool win to 0, which came in. And I'm not going to step away from that, really. I think this will be very similar to the Sheffield United game a couple of days ago. I'm going to be cautious on the handicaps, only because Liverpool aren't thrashing teams like this away from home as you might expect them to at home. So a Liverpool -2 handicap is not a bad bet here. That brings you in around the 2-1 threshold, just under. You can go -1. Look, there isn't a great deal of value here. You can go -1. The best bet I can find, really, is Liverpool win to 0. I can't see any scenario where Crystal Palace are going to score. That'll bring you in just under the threshold, but it's going to be a comfortable but relatively quiet Liverpool win.
And there is always the feeling of the case of like Liverpool winning second half. So that one as well, second half win for Liverpool. Not amazing value, but still 1.96. Next one, Tom, we have is Brighton and Burnley at the Amex. We had last night the Brighton win UTIP and the goals UTIP with Brentford. It's difficult to imagine Burnley can leave the Amex with their second away win of the season. Against Wolverhampton, they could not build on the 5-0 against Sheffield and suffered even the injury of Luca Cosciolo, the Italian who has been company's best player lately. Brighton has both score and concede in each of their 15 Premier League matches. Not much value in the odds for Brighton to win. So is Asian handicap or goal markets maybe the way forward here?
Yeah, I think you've got to add some spice to it because Brighton to win, as you can see, is not going to be worth your time. And look, I won't spend too much time on Burnley. I don't see any scenario they're going to win this game. I know that there's a real confidence about Burnley because of Sheffield United, the thrashing of them. But away from home, it's one victory, which is against Luton. It's one draw. It's 5 defeats. It's 13 conceded. They're a team that don't have the quality. I mean, we say this every single week. They just don't have it. And going to Brighton, look, they have so many players out, Brighton. It's extraordinary. You know, they're up there with Newcastle and one or two others with absentees, and they're really important ones too. Estupinian, Fati, Lamptey, and Ciso, Welbeck. They would all play right now. So it's a concern massively for Brighton and Hove Albion to not have these players. I think Adam Webster remains out. Lewis Dunk should be back for this one. Solly Martin didn't mention there. It's half the first team missing. It's unbelievable. And yet they keep doing this thing where they're like, oh, they're going to struggle. And you're like, who's Hinselwood?
Yeah.
Who's this guy? You know, same thing we did with Enciso and Buenanotte and Adingra. You don't know them. And suddenly you watch them and think, oh, they're good, aren't they? £40 million player. It's incredible they keep on doing it. So really important win for them because they've been on an indifferent run. They've not won at home for quite some time before the victory in midweek. I think it's an easy win here. The handicap concerns me only because how close recent Brighton games have been at home. I think you've got to look at Brighton to win and both teams to score, obviously, because every single game for Brighton this year has been both teams to score. I wouldn't discount this being separated by one goal. So you've got to look at that group bet market. I love the group bet market. It delivered a brilliant 6.5 for Villa City in midweek, and I stick with it for a game like this. 1-0, 2-0, or 2-1, group bet. Take Brighton. Both teams to score in there as well. There's money to be made.
Great. That was then Brighton Burnley. The next one is Manchester United Bournemouth. Ten Hag last night finally was smiling. They were brave in the first half. Tom, I was watching the game. They were proactive. They created plenty of chances. They even missed a penalty. The press was so high at times that there were many situations when Chelsea broke that first line of pressure and could run 1-on-1 against Manchester United defense. For sure, anyway, it's the best I have seen from them in a long time. But this Bournemouth should provide a great challenge for them. 3 wins in the last 4 with the 2-0 against Palace yesterday. As much as I said good things about Manchester United last night, in the last 4 or 5 years, we have seen even West Bromwich Albion winning at Old Trafford. So we have odds of 5.90 for an away win. Maybe a mortgage is waiting there to be paid, or you wouldn't go that far.
No, look, I mean, the Chelsea game in midweek came in near to exactly what we predicted on the show a couple of days ago because Chelsea went into the game playing pretty much the only way that Man United want you to play. They want you to have huge gaps between back line and front line. They want the midfield to be overwhelmed by a swarm of red shirts. And Chelsea just did it. I mean, I'm watching the game thinking look at what Luton did. Look at what Fulham did. You know, look at all these games recently in the Premier League. I know it was a bit more like the European game, a bit more like the Galatasaray game, but you shut Man United down, you're probably going to get something from the game. And Chelsea didn't do it. It was crazy, really, to watch the way they went about it. Very cavalier, but maybe quite rightly, Pochettino thinks the season's already gone, and so Chelsea did that. Really impressed by elements of Man United. I do think that Scott McTominay's development into this Frank Lampard-style attacking midfielder is terrific. Credit to him and Eric Ten Hag for spotting that in him. I'm not sure many of us did. And to Steve Clarke at Scotland as well, who first got him to play forward. So that's pretty impressive. I think a lot of credit goes to the work rate of Rasmus Højlund as well. Look, he still can't score a goal, but I think he gives it massive energy up front for United. Defensively, again, I thought Harry Maguire was excellent. Again and again, he proves that he isn't Franco Baresi, but he's not, think of someone useless, Emmanuel Pogatetz, right? He's a perfectly good 6 to 7 out of 10 defender. And when everyone else ain't doing that, I think he looks pretty impressive. And Luke Shaw coming back makes a difference for Man United too. So loads of positives there. For Bournemouth, you know, great win at Crystal Palace in midweek. I think they're surprising me a lot at the moment with their ability to get results in games. I've been really impressed all season with Dominic Solanke, as you know. I think he's a really good player. And I think that they may well stay up this season, again, because of the failings of those below them. And to be above Nottingham Forest right now in the table with that victory, 3 victories in their last 4 games, the other result was a draw. It's all pretty impressive from Iriola right now. You've got to give it to him. What he is trying to do is paying dividends against the worst teams. I don't see them winning here. I think you've got to look at the Man United home game pattern this year. Man United home game pattern against the lower teams. Look, they aren't going to go as defensive as Luton or maybe Brentford or maybe Crystal Palace, which are all pretty tight games, but I don't think Bournemouth will be as cavalier as maybe we think they might. So take a Man United win, pretty low value. Take it under 2.5 goals. That brings you in on the threshold. And I think you've got to look at who Man United's top scorer is. We mentioned him. It's Scott McTominay. So if you're going to pick out a goal scorer, the ball keeps falling to McTominay right now. He's making the right runs at the right time. And I think McTominay to score any time and Man United to win, again, brings you in over the 2-1 threshold we're looking for.
Don, do you think Gary O'Neill opens his phone, checks the scores up every time Bournemouth is playing, and if they see that Iraola wins, he throws the phone away or something like that?
I think he won't do that until Bournemouth get above Wolves in the table. If that happens, he might be a bit miffed. But in the end, they didn't want him. What are you going to do? You've got to go over her someday, haven't you? You know.
That's life. Next is Sheffield United Brentford. Even if Chris Wilder gets his first win on Saturday, that won't be enough to lift them from relegation zone. They were okay in the first half last night. At least they looked organized and with a plan and created opportunities against Liverpool. The biggest problem of all for them, Tom, is that they just cannot score. For Brentford, 2 wins away this season against Fulham and Chelsea, but they should be confident for a third one on Saturday. Brentford to win is 1.78, but Brentford to win 2-0 is 3.1. Would you go that route?
I would take that exact bet. I think that's terrific. I just, with Sheffield United, really briefly, I think that Chris Wilder coming in changes nothing, really. I think Paul Heckingbottom did a good job overall. He, of course, replaced Chris Wilder last time they were in the Premier League. Wilder is a good manager, and he's a good coach, and he's a Sheffield guy, and he'll give some attitude and energy to a season that's fallen off a cliff, but it's not going to make a difference. They don't have the Premier League quality players, and they might win games like this. I wouldn't discount it completely, but are they going to get the 10 or 12 wins required to stay up? It's just not going to happen. Brentford are really interesting. You look at their away form this season. It actually isn't amazing if you look at 4 defeats. But what's interesting here, the lowest scoring games this season away from home. There are 2 teams. Number 1 is Manchester United. Number 2 is Brentford. They have been involved in games where they have scored 8 but conceded 9 away from home. They probably should have more points away from home than they've actually got. They are so difficult to beat. They are so difficult to break down. My only variable here is that we don't know yet the situation with Brian and Mbeumo. We know there's no Tony, of course.
Oh, yeah.
We know that there's several other players out, Rico Henry and serious players for Brentford. Matthias Jorgensen's been out, Aya's been out, but if Mbeumo is out, that changes a lot. I am going to assume that he is missing, and that's why I'm going to go under, not over. That's why I'm going to go tight victory. Probably Yoann Wissa, who has played more games, I think, for Brentford than anyone else in the Premier League, which I read a couple of weeks ago. Bizarre. I always feel like he's an also-ran at Brentford, and he also always plays. That's the thing with Wissa. So you look at a tight game. You look at the under, all sorts of the under. If you feel really brave, go under 1.5 goals in the match and leave it. That's 0-0 or 1-0 either way. Yeah. I wouldn't discount that. I quite fancy Brentford to win at the safety net of under 2.5 goals in the match, 1-0 or 2-0. And I think you'll make some money there. It's going to be tight. It's going to be low scoring. And I wouldn't discount the draw straight up as well. The draw is always worth looking at. This looks like a 0-0, a 1-1, or a 1-0 to Brentford to me.
All right, then now we got Wolverhampton, Nottingham Forest. The business for Wolves, Tom, is definitely at home. 3 wins, including the one with Burnley in midweek, and 2 draws, apart from those 3 wins in the last 5 at the Molineux. You spoke many times about the drama of Forest away from City Ground, a drama that kept growing last night with the 5-0 thrashing they got from Fulham. Forest is on a run of just 1 win in 11 Premier League games. So what's your take here, Wolverhampton, Nottingham Forest?
You've got to take Wolves to win. You have to because of the form you mentioned. They've been terrific at home this season. Last 5 games, it's 3 victories and 2 draws in that time. Victory over Tottenham was very impressive, but I was really impressed with the win over Wolves on Tuesday as well, because it's all well and good for teams like Wolverhampton Wanderers to win against Tottenham, right? Because it's a huge night. Everyone's up for it. You want to beat Tottenham. You want to beat Liverpool. You want to beat Man United. You want to get that big scalp. But the crowd aren't as up for it against Burnley at home on a Tuesday. It's tough. You've got to get them going. You've got to get them excited. And we've all been to those games where the home team has not brought the impetus. I was at West Ham Palace the weekend. Case in point, the home team didn't lift the crowd never got going, the game never got going, and the home team didn't win. So that's really going to be interesting here. Having done it against Burnley a couple of days ago, can they do it here? I don't think Wolves are going to be in relegation trouble this season at all, and I think this game is the kind of game where they move away. And in terms of Forest, I'd be amazed if this wasn't Steve Cooper's last game in charge. I think that
really
the race seems completely run there. The away form of Forest since they've come up has been abysmal, completely abysmal. Right now, they have won one away game this season. That was against Chelsea. There was one other away victory last season against Southampton. Beyond that, he can't set a team up to get a result away from home. He simply can't do it. 6 defeats on the road this season is nowhere near good enough. 1 point in the last 5 is nowhere near good enough. It's their second season now. There should be improvement. There's been no improvement. Now the home form's going too. Big concerns for me about Steve Cooper remaining at Nottingham Forest. And there was a great picture last night. I don't know if you saw this. Somebody found the Fulham owner's accreditation pass in a bush outside Craven Cottage, where he'd obviously taken it off in a huff and just thrown it in a local hedgerow. Incredible. So if the owner's annoyed and the team are losing, I think there could be trouble. So you got to go for a Wolves win. I actually am not going to discount a handicap here, not necessarily because of Wolves going forward, because of Forest defensively. 18 conceded away from home this season for Nottingham Forest. Gargantuan numbers. For reference, look mid-table, West Ham, 14. Look up at the table of this particular away table. Everton, 11 goals conceded away. You know, it's right up there. It is right up there with Bournemouth. I think only Sheffield United have conceded more away goals than Forest this season. So they can score goals, Wolves. Still no Neto, but they do have Wang Hee-chan and Mateus Cunha. They can score. Wolves win. Make it a -1 handicap. That'll bring you to the threshold. And also here, I can't see Sheffield United. I can't see Nottingham Forest scoring, so take Wolves to win to 0. 2 little sneaky ones there. -1, don't discount the -2, even though I think 1 is more likely, and take Wolves to win to 0, but all sorts of Wolves win.
Yeah, I was thinking that one, Wolves to win 2-0. Latest one is on 3.1 at the moment. Wolves to win 2-0. Next one, Tom, is the match of the weekend in the Premier League in Villa Park. Aston Villa against Arsenal. What a night yesterday for Villa. For sure, this 1-0 over City was the most important of these 14 home league games, unbeaten consecutively for Unai Emery's team. They now move above City into third, 2 points behind second place Liverpool and 4 behind Arsenal, a gap that could be reduced to only 1 point on Saturday evening. But if Villa, in the words of Pep Guardiola, can win the league, what to say about this Arsenal? The way they went for the 3 points in the last 25 minutes to make it 4-3 away to Luton was quite outstanding. But anyway, Tom, Villa to win is 3.58. I leave it there for you to expand.
Well, just take it. Just take it right now. I mean, that is the top tip I'm going to give you here. Just take Villa to win. Villa to win after 14 home wins in a row, over 2-1, is extraordinary. And it's why we did it on Wednesday. We had the discussion. The City game came in perfectly for us. It came in with Villa to win. It came in with the group bet. It came in all sorts of ways for us. All of our tips for Villa to win in midweek came off because the energy of the performance, the statistics, look, you can prove anything with the stats, but City had 2 shots. Yeah. Villa had over 20. They could have won this incredibly comfortably against the European champions. Chance after chance, moment after moment. Douglas Luiz scored in the first half, but it was rightly disallowed. You know, they were fantastic. And look, they aren't going to win the league, okay? I'm not going to put money on them winning the league, but they are in the title race. And I think there's a really important distinction there because everyone's in the title race till they're not. Right now, Villa go in it on pure points tally alone. If they beat Arsenal this weekend, I still don't think they'll win the league, but they are in the title race. They are in that discussion with a third of the season gone. Unbelievable when you consider most of the first team that played against City on Wednesday, they were in a relegation battle with Steven Gerrard a year ago. Yeah. Incredible what they've been able to do. And it's very un-Emery as well, the way they play. Elements are quite Emery, but it's like Premier League Emery. Like, he's done something different here to what we've seen in La Liga, and in his previous time in Arsenal as well. He's learned a lot, he's grown a lot, and they're very, very good. In terms of Arsenal, no Mikel Arteta on the sideline here. As a side note, he got yellow carded during the celebrations against Luton, so he's not going to be there to essentially be the 12th man for Arsenal during games. That could be a key differential. I don't know. He's very demonstrative. You know he's there on the sideline as a player and as a fan. So that's going to be an interesting one. But I think Arsenal were really good against Luton, I've got to say. You know, they scored 4 goals. Declan Rice is a monster of a footballer. I think the midfield balance of Ødegaard, Havertz and Rice, though not perfect, had its moments in this game. I certainly wouldn't play it here, but I think there were some green shoots there. And the front three linked together really well. Again, 4 goals scored. The issue is they haven't got a very good goalkeeper. They just... The Raya Ramsdale thing is so unbearably dumb, what he has done, Mikel Arteta, because... if you want to change your number one, change your number one. But he didn't do that. He's done this whole softly, I've got 2 number one goalkeepers thing and succeeded in destroying the confidence of Aaron Ramsdale, but also destroying the confidence of Raya because everyone's comparing him directly to Ramsdale. Whereas if he said from the start, he's my number one, I'm dropping him, no one's talking about it because you've made the choice. If you have a number one goalkeeper who was nominated for Goalkeeper of the Year at the Silly French Magazine Awards, then... you got to either keep him or get him out of the club. Otherwise, you've got a problem here. It's a problem all of Arteta's making. And the second goal against Luton is bad goalkeeping. I know Adebayo's a big guy, but you've got arms. You couldn't get up. And the third goal, the Barkley one, it's terrible keeping. It's really amateur stuff from Raya. So there's an issue there that he's got to solve, Mikel Arteta. And if Raya starts, which I think he will... all eyes on him. And if you're coming up against Leon Bailey, love to shoot from distance. Douglas Luiz, love to shoot from distance. Yep. Ollie Watkins has 3 to 5 shots a game. Concerns there. So, really interesting. I think I am going to follow a very similar pattern to the Man City game. I think this might nearly be a carbon copy of that game. Villa to win, as you mentioned, great odds, take it straight up. I think it'll be a low-scoring affair. Aston Villa to win under 2.5 goals in the match brings you even better odds, brings you above 4. Really good. That was on Thursday's odds. Look at the pattern again. Draw at half-time. Competitive. Half chances. Not many goals. Villa go on to win the game at full-time. That delivered in midweek. I'll take it again. 3 really, really nice bets there for Villa to win. I also wouldn't discount a draw. That's always decent odds. Throw both teams to score in it. If Arsenal score 1, I think the draw becomes very likely. I don't discount it, but Villa to win and those variables in there, I think there's a lot of good money to be made here.
Yes, the draw is on 3.85 at the moment on a Thursday, so still, yes, plenty of money to be made there, but a great game to watch, definitely. Aston Villa, Arsenal on Saturday evening. On Sunday, we start with Everton, Chelsea. The Toffees will have to play Matchday 15 tonight with Newcastle, but for sure, they took note of how poor is sometimes Chelsea at the moment, because they have moments in a game when they look good, yes, but those moments are very short-lived. Last night in Old Trafford, some decision making in the last third was a bit painful to watch. I was in Stamford Bridge on Sunday with Brighton, and as much as I believe Pochettino, yes, of course, he's a great manager, the feeling is like he does not have the elite quality of Klopp, Pep, or Simeone, Ancelotti, this kind of manager who will like maybe change or tweak things during the game to go and then win it. I had the feeling that does not happen that with Pochettino. Their run shows 3 defeats, 2 wins and 1 draw in the last 6. Almost, anyway, 2 goals on average away from Stamford Bridge for Chelsea. So we could expect them maybe to score here. Would you go both teams to score against Everton or goals market?
I really don't know. I'm being led here more by what games at Goodison have been like this season, more than Chelsea. And at Goodison this season, Everton have scored 5 goals, which is obviously woeful, but they've only conceded 9. All the games are really tight. And if they start scoring from corners again, I think things could get quite interesting. I'm hoping Dominic Calvert-Lewin will be fit for this game. He missed the weekend. We don't know about Thursday as yet as we record this, but can he play if he's played on Thursday onto Sunday as well? That close together, I don't know. Without him, even though they won at Forest last weekend, I do feel like they're missing their best player by some margin. I've been impressed this season by Decore, Anana when he's been fit. And defensively, in a game like Forest last week, James Tarkowski shows why he's got such value for Everton. There are huge limitations in his game. He turns slower than milk. But when it comes to crosses coming in the penalty area, when it comes to telling everyone what to do, when it comes to we're 1-0 up with 10 minutes to go, he's one of the first people I put in my team. A real warrior type player and a real Deitch type player. It's why he's had him twice. Yeah. So with Everton, if they're going to win this game, I'd go on the under. With Chelsea, just to your point on Mauricio Pochettino, I don't know that he knows what he's got yet. I really don't know that he's got any idea what he's got. I think he's picked 1 or 2 players that he's going to build the team around. I think he's got 6 or 7. He would happily move on. And I think that's a really, really interesting position to be in as Chelsea manager. This Chelsea season is already pretty much a write-off. They are not going to make the top 4. The top 6 looks unlikely. It's a battle with West Ham and Brighton for the Conference League, for the expenditure they have had. It's crazy. It's crazy how poorly this season has gone so far. So I think that your point about substitutions is so well taken, but I will say that there are loads of managers who don't make that many changes. At the very top end, Pep Guardiola isn't famous for making too many changes for players. Formations, yes, but players, no. David Moyes, in the mid-level, doesn't make many changes in games. That's just the way some coaches are. They pick a team and they keep their best players on the field as long as they can and try and get something from it. So I think we expected that from Pochettino. I just don't think it's a fit for Chelsea when they've got 500 players. It was a great fit for Tottenham when they had 14 really good players because you could make 1 or 2 and stop. This is a 5-sub squad. They might need a 5-sub manager. I can't bet on Chelsea's form. I just can't. I've got everything wrong with Chelsea this season. Do you know what? I've been so happy with my predictions this season for so many teams. Chelsea, I am clueless, completely clueless. I don't know. Look, we got Man United right in the week, right? So I'm happy with that. But I've got Chelsea wrong so many times this season. I really don't know. I would not put my personal money on a Chelsea result, even like £1 of it. I wouldn't do it because I can't tell you. The only thing I'll pick here is I'll go on Everton's home form. An Everton win under 2.5 goals brings you in some good money. Everton on its own to win is pretty decent. And Chelsea don't have an amazing record at Goodison. They don't have an amazing away record this season. I get that they have done really well in terms of scoring goals away from home, but lost the last couple away. Looked a bit suspect defensively in midweek. I think 1 corner will win this game for you, and I would take Everton to get it.
Good. Next one then is interesting as well, Tom. Fulham West Ham in Craven Cottage. West Ham plays tonight with Tottenham, but if Fulham plays the football display yesterday against Forest, it won't matter too much what happens to West Ham against Tottenham to think about Sunday. They scored 5 yesterday, what makes 11 goals for Fulham in the last 3 games for them. There is also the good news of Raúl Jimenez scoring a brace. You said last show that since that awful head injury in November 2020, he has never been the same, and probably he won't be, but for a moment we had the deja vu of why he used to be massively important for Wolves, Raúl Jimenez. Is this another game where both teams to score and goals market might be of good value?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, on Fulham, Raúl Jimenez, the point you made there is so well taken because he was so good. He was so good during his time at Wolverhampton Wanderers, and the goals he scored against Forest on Wednesday are brilliant. They are such excellent finishes. The blast in the top corner is typical striker's instinct. The little back heel when he's played the offside and he gets around the keeper, that's the guy we remember. And if he can play like that against better teams than Forest, they might have a 15-goal a season striker. And if Fulham had that, changes everything for them. Have been impressed with their home form away from the Forest game, which might be a bit anomalous because of how bad Forest are. Yep. But they played well in most games. Played well against Manchester United, could have got something from it. Played well against Sheffield United, and were impressive in the victory over Wolves as well. Look, I know it was controversial penalties, but I thought on balance of play they deserved to win that game. West Ham. West Ham United are an extraordinary team. They are an extraordinary team. We predicted this against Crystal Palace last weekend. They don't play to the 88th minute. They just don't play. They just try and kill the game. bore you to tears. And then suddenly 90 minutes comes up and they're like, right, we'll try and win this. And it's got them across all competitions, 3 wins and a draw in the last 4. They've got to take the handbrake off at some point. If you have, look, I know people will say about David Moyes, he's so negative. West Ham have played some brilliant football under David Moyes at times during his 4 years there. Right now is not that time. They were so overcautious against Palace at the weekend, it cost them the win. Palace were there to get beaten, and they had Jarrod Bowen, Mohamed Kudus, and Lucas Paqueta on the field at the same time and barely had a shot. And that's the manager, that's the coaching, that's the tactic. If Jarrod Bowen scores that 93rd minute header and they win 2-1, it's perfect. They've done it again. But if he doesn't, it looks bad. And Palace were there to get walloped and West Ham didn't do it. We don't know about the Tottenham game right now, but I would have expected them to lose that quite comfortably because of the way they play. This one is interesting. I think West Ham here are going to be able to get something from the game. I think they're not going to allow Fulham to score 3, 4, 5 goals against them. Plus, I've got to think that Kudus and Bowen, if fit, can get at this pretty poor Fulham back line. Tim Ream's looking his age. Anthony Robinson can't defend. Will it be Diop or Bassi at centre-half? Either way, I'm not particularly impressed by that pairing. And away from Palhinha, I think the midfield struggles for quality too. He does the jobs of about 4 guys in midfield. So, screams draw. As we mentioned for Palace last week, always bet the draw for West Ham right now. Always look at both teams to score. West Ham have had some helter-skelter games this season, which is mad considering how negative they are. Their away form is actually pretty decent, West Ham. 3 victories, 3 defeats, 12 goals scored. That's not too shabby. And, of course, won their last game as well. So look at both teams to score. I would take West Ham to win and both teams to score. Draw and both teams to score is likely as well. But weirdly, I can't see that many goals, despite having just mentioned that. So my gut score is West Ham win under 2.5 goals. That's a 1-0 victory for West Ham, which I think was the scoreline in this game last season. West Ham have a really good record against Fulham and at Fulham, so I'm taking the Hammers.
So the draw on this one is on 365 as well. Good value, as you mentioned, Tom, on Fulham. West Ham now the turn for Luton and Manchester City. What a night for Luton on Tuesday. If and only if they could have held the 3-2 lead for longer and not just for 1 minute as it happened, maybe things could have been different for them. Once Arsenal scored the 3-3, kind of all knew what was going to happen to them. If Everton wins tonight, Luton will start the match in relegation places. They will face a City side winless in the last 4 with 3 draws and 1 defeat. After getting a draw with Liverpool, after the heroics for 96 minutes with Arsenal, could they dream against City, or that is one step too far for them?
They're not going to beat Man City, right?
But a draw at least.
Come on. I just, look, I was really impressed with Luton. I know you were calling the game a couple of nights ago as well. I think Adebayo played terrifically well. Ross Barkley, I think we're all enjoying that narrative of him coming back to the Premier League. You know, I was stunned to find out he only just turned 30. I assumed he was 45. So, you know,
there was at some point at the end of the game with Barkley with his socks down, he was looking like anyone playing 5-a-side being, I can't deal anymore with this. The last 5 or 10 minutes, he was looking like that.
Yeah, but he is too good a player to be playing for Luton, but his career has led him there through missteps, mistakes, poor form, errors, whatever. And they love him there. They absolutely love him. And why wouldn't they? They wouldn't have seen a player of that quality in 30 or 40 years, you know. So, extraordinary footballer, great move, great narrative, and a great performance in midweek. Osho at centre-half was good. There was loads of good performances from Luton in midweek, and they didn't deserve to get beat. You know, that's the Premier League. As I always think of Thomas Frank, the Brentford manager. I mentioned this to you the other day. I'm always using this quote. He was asked on Brentford's first day in the Premier League a couple of seasons ago, what's the difference between the Championship and the Premier League? And he said the boxes. The boxes are the difference. Scoring in theirs and not in ours. And in the Championship, you can afford to let them in a couple of times. And you can afford at the other end to miss a couple of chances. Premier League, the percentage is a lot lower, right? So that's your difference. And Luton just couldn't do it in the boxes. It cost them. In terms of City, it is their worst run in some years. The fixtures have not been particularly kind, I think that's fair to say. But I think they'll win this match, right? Let's put it out there now. It's one victory in the last 5 away from home. My concern is there's no value in what I think is going to happen. I don't think this will be a tanking. I don't think it'll be a tanking because of the things we've spoken about with Luton, the poor form of Manchester City, 1 or 2 niggly injuries, and Luton don't get particularly walloped. The most likely scoreline for me is going to be 2-0. So don't discount the group bet of 1-0, 2-0, and 2-1. It still brings you under 2-1. It's not a great bet here. Usually the group bet is quite good, but I don't really fancy it. The only way to make money here is to go handicap and look at -2, even -3. But I just don't feel in my gut this is going to finish 4 or 5-0 because of the way Luton play, plus the measurements of the Kenilworth Road. It's a really small pitch in both width and length. There's no space to play football. And look, City are great at playing out of tight quarters, but it's still going to be very difficult here. So look, it's going to go in my accumulator, but it's not necessarily one I'll bet on directly. Right. So City are going to win the match, put it into a treble or a double somewhere, even a fourfold if you feel really brave. But the only value here is a -2 handicap. So that's going to be the top tip for this one. But I'd keep this in the group and I'd avoid it on individuals.
And then the last fixture to analyze is Tottenham Newcastle, Tom. They both are playing tonight. Last season in North London, the intensity and speed of play of Newcastle was too much for Tottenham. Miguel Almirón, remember, terrorized Spurs defense, but that one was in October 2022, a week or two before the World Cup, and was Antonio Conte's Tottenham. But this Postecoglou's Tottenham has its own intensity too. I think we should have a good encounter to finish match day 16. In 5 of their 6 home matches, they have scored first, Tottenham, in 5 of them. So even in matches they end up losing, like Chelsea or Aston Villa, they always score first. With that in mind, Tottenham to score first, odds of 1.87. But how do you see this one, Tottenham-Newcastle?
Love it. Love Tottenham to score first. Love both teams to score. I love this game. I can't wait to watch it. I think it's going to be terrific. I think the added variable of so many players being out for these two teams as well adds a level of chaos to the match, which is going to make it terrific. Just worth noting for those that aren't across the current list: no Perisic, no Bentancur, Mickey van der Ven, James Maddison, Sessegnon, Solomon, Dyer, Sarr. Romero came back in midweek, or the Thursday game, which is coming up tonight. But beyond that, it's a long injury list for Tottenham Hotspur. For Newcastle, it remains really long as well. Tonali, Nick Pope is now injured, so Dubravka's going to be in goal. Murphy, Byrne, Wilson, Anderson, Longstaff, Willock, Barnes, Manquillo, Target, and there's some discussion about Anthony Gordon. No, I think he's going to be fine. So, look, loads of players missing here. And it's worth noting, too, Newcastle's away form has been rubbish this season. If they could have played away from home like last season, they might be top of the league, but it's 1 victory in 6. And awful against Bournemouth. The last I saw them play away from home as well, though. That was a real crisis point in the injury issues. So it's an incredible game, this. And I think that both teams to score is your safest bet. Even though Newcastle don't concede many, Tottenham always score at home, as you've mentioned, usually first. Son has been terrific this season. Kulusevski has had some incredible moments. I think they get the ball to those players quickly. They get it to him quickly. They look from in behind, and Son does something for them. The performance at City was brilliant. It was daring. It was exactly what Tottenham fans would have wanted from Tottenham, and it's a great performance and result. But I got to say that I just would pick for Newcastle. I know the form doesn't quite lead you there, but I think that defensively, they've started to work it out. You can tell the loss of Sven Botman was huge. Lascelles has stepped into that breach and started doing really, really well. I think Bruno Guimaraes coming back in, who wasn't available for Bournemouth a couple of weeks ago, makes a huge difference. Joe Linton being fit makes a huge difference. And with every passing week, Lewis Miley, 17 years of age, looks more and more like a Premier League player. It was amazing, the Man U game last week, by the way. You're thinking to yourself, oh, this 17-year-old is bossing the midfield against Man United. And it was an 18-year-old he was up against. It was weird. It was a weird moment, but I think he's brilliant. And with Anthony Gordon, the form of his career, Isak fit, no, I just think he's fantastic. And Almiron, you mentioned, loves this fixture and looks in good form too. So the first team of Newcastle, I think, is better than the available first team at Tottenham. I think Newcastle United will follow the blueprint laid out by Aston Villa a couple of weeks ago. That was a 2-1 victory for Villa, and I can see it being the same. So Newcastle win and both teams to score. Newcastle win itself is not bad on the odds here when you consider that they're the higher in the table in literal and metaphorical sense. But also, again, look at the group bet: 1-0, 2-0, 2-1 for Newcastle. That brings you above the 2-1 threshold, and I like that bet too.
Amazing. That's everything then on Matchday 16 with Tom Rennie. But before we send the goodbyes, what's your safe bet and Akatom?
Safe bet for this week is Manchester City to win. I know it's not the safest bet right now, but Luton away after defeating midweek, it's as safe as you're going to get. City win. In terms of accumulator, it's a threefold this week. I think my last 4 have come in, so I'm getting a little bit more daring. And I'm going to go with Liverpool and City, sure, but throwing Newcastle at Tottenham, that's a bit of a madman to go in there, but it brings you in at 5. 4-1. A 4-1 with 2 favourites, Liverpool City, plus Newcastle to win at beleaguered, injury-ravaged Tottenham. It's nice, that. I'm taking it.
Great. Thanks, Tom. Many thanks. A pleasure, as always, to be with you on the show. Thank you guys as well for watching, for leaving your comments. And do not forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. See you next time. Bye-bye.